everyone. This is day 3 of our factoring unit for Algebra 2 Honors. Welcome back. Please make sure you're taking detailed notes. We can see that a lot of students that take detailed notes, write all their work down, helps them be successful on their assessments for this unit. Okay, so first let's talk about how could we solve this. X to the 4th minus 64. Could I take this apart and make this and factor it? So x to the 4th, well, how do I get x to the 4th? That's x squared times x squared, because 2 plus 2 is 4, and then negative 64. Well, that means I'd have a positive 8 and a negative 8 to get that negative 64. And then what I could do is solve both of these separately and see what I get. So I have x squared plus 8 equals 0 and x squared minus 8 equals 0. Subtract the 8 to both sides. Add the 8 to both sides, and now I have x squared by itself. Then I can square root both sides of both of these equations. So then, when I square root something, I know I have a plus or minus in front. Plus or minus in front, and then I can go from there and simplify that square root. So when I have a negative 8, I know that I have to take out an I. Okay, I have an I, and then I have 2 times 4. Well, the square root of 4 is 2. So I'm going to take out the I and the 2 and have the remaining 2 left over. So then I have plus or minus 2i square root 2. And then if it's a positive 8, same thing. I have a 2 and a 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So then I have 2 square root 2 for this one. So now I have 4 answers because it was x to the 4th, okay? Which would be my answer? My answer would be B. Okay. All right, number 2. Let's see how we could solve this. So we want to solve it, so we need to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to bring over that w squared. So I'm going to have 0 equals w squared plus w. Okay, now let's see what they have in common. Greatest common factor. That's what we want to think about. Well, they both have a w, so I'm going to divide out a w and then see what is left over on the inside. So w squared divided by w is 1 more w. And what is w divided by w is a 1, which is kind of like a placeholder. So if I distributed back out, I could get back to the original of w squared plus w. Okay, now this equals 0, and now I'm going to determine what my 2 answers could be. So w equals 0, and then w plus 1 equals 0. So therefore, my answers are 0 and negative 1 for my w. So that's how I would solve it. Okay, so that's our review. And now let's get to factoring. Okay? All right, for these next problems, we want to figure out that b and c. So we're going to solve using our x. So the negative 8 is going to go on the top because that is our C. And then the 7 will go to the bottom of our x, which will be addition. So we want to see what 2 factors multiply to negative 8 and add to 7. Well, 7's pretty close to 8. So let's see if we had 8 and 1. Could we get 7? Now, which one of those to get a positive 7? Well, the 1 would have to be negative. So let's practice. So 8 times negative 1 becomes a negative 8. 8 plus negative 1 becomes 7. So then we determined our factors. So I have x plus 8 and x minus 1. All right, now let's try number 2. 12 is what we need to multiply to. That is our C. And what do we need to add to? Our 7. Okay, so what numbers multiply to 12 and add to 7? So let's think about this. So if I had 2 and 6, those multiply to 12, but do they add to 7? No, so that won't work. Okay, now let's think about 3 and 4. All right, they both will need to be positive to get a positive 12 and add to 7. So I have n plus 3, and then I have n plus 4. If you decide to put n plus 4 times n plus 3, that means the same thing, okay? It's like saying 3 times 4 or 4 times 3, okay? You'll still get 12, so make sure that you can interchange that, all right? Now number 3, now I have a negative 12 and a negative 4. So when I have a negative b, we're talking about this inside, and I have a negative c, that means I have to have a negative factor and a positive factor. Okay, so let's think about this again. With 3 and 4, would that get to 4? Can I get to 4? No. All right. What about 12 and 1? Could I add or subtract something to get to negative 4? I don't think so. So you kind of talk it out. Figure it out. How we get better at these is keep on practicing. It's like shooting a basket. How do we get better at shooting a basket? How do we get better at factoring? Practice. All right, 6 and 2. How would I get a negative 4? Which one is negative? Boop, the negative 6. That's how I get a negative 4, folks. So I get x minus 6 and x plus 2. Holla, holla. All right, awesome. So that is factoring. Now you notice our next 3 problems have an equal sign. So when we're solving, there's another step. So we want to make sure that we follow the steps. So 1, 2, and 3 was just factoring. So when you get those parentheses, when you get those factors, you are done ski. But when you have an equal sign, you got to solve now. So number 4, it's already equal to 0, so we are ready to go with our x. So I have negative 15 and negative 2. All right, they're both negative, so one of your factors is negative. So let's try 5 and 3. Which one to get a negative 2? The negative 5. All right, folks, so I have x minus 5 and x plus 3 equals 0. Then I need to solve. Each of these has its own factor, and we're going to make them both equal to 0 to determine what those are. What are the solutions? Finding those roots. Roots and solutions mean the same thing. So x equals 5 and x equals negative 3. So here are my 2 roots or solutions. So when it equals 0, this is what we're looking for as our answer. When we're looking for factoring, you know that you're done when you have parentheses. So knowing the difference is huge. All right, number 5. Is it equal to 0 yet? I don't think so. So I need to move the negative 3. I need to move the 3x over and make it negative 3x. I like to put it in this order so then I know what to put in the x. All right? Remember, the C goes on top and the B goes on bottom of the x. Now we need to figure out what factors multiply to 2 and add to negative 3. Well, there's only 2 numbers that go into 2, and that's 2 times 1. How would I get a negative 3? Well, they both would need to be negative in order to get a negative 3 and a positive 2. 2 negatives when you multiply become a positive. 2 negatives when you add and keep the negative. All right, so now I'm going to factor. So I have x minus 2 and x minus 1 equals 0. Am I done yet? Nope. I got to solve. Okay, we need to solve by finding the roots. So I have x minus 2 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. I solve and find my 2 roots. Okay, so let me move up a little. So those would be my 2 answers. You can also write it together like so. So x is 2 and 1. All right, number 6, I want you to try this one on your own. First, we need to make it equal to 0. And I want you to factor this one. Try it, pause it, and come back. All right, number 6, you should have gotten negative 8 and 5. Negative 8 and 5 as your roots. Okay, all right, let's move on. Finding the roots of the equations. Okay, again, we're solving for 0 first. And now we need to think about our first 2 days and what we need to do. All right, number 4, we already did. Now let's move on to number 7. So when we look at number 7, we need to think about, all right, so I have a 2, an 8, and a 24. Those are all, these numbers have something in common. They have a 2. So let's take out the common factor and see if our factoring method is a little bit easier. So when I divide out a 2, I have x squared plus 4x minus 12 remaining inside. Now once the 2 is taken out, I can factor the inside of this. So I have negative 12 to multiply to and 4 to add to. All right, well, I need a negative and a positive. So let's see. So 6 and 2, which one would give me a positive 4 when I put them together. Well, that would become a negative 2. All right, I keep the 2 on the outside, and I keep factoring. So I have x plus 6 and x minus 2. Here I am right here. But it says I need to solve. I need to find the roots. All right, so the 2 again stays on the outside. I'm going to do x plus 6 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. So therefore I get x equals negative 6 and x equals 2. And those would be my roots. So that was much easier for me to do rather than timesing the 2 times the negative 24 and having more work to do. So always think about is there anything I can take out as the greatest common factor to make this easier for myself? Hello. All right. Okay, number 8. All right, number 8. I do not have it by itself yet. All right, number 8, I need to bring the 30 over to make it equal to 0. So I have 4k squared plus 14k minus 30 equals 0. Now I have it equal to 0, 0 product property or product rule. And now I need to determine if there's anything that is in common. Okay, so let's see. I think there's a 2 I can also take out of this one. So if I can take out a 2, I have 2k squared plus 7k minus 15 equals 0. Well, that's a much easier problem to work with. And then I'm going to have the 2 times the 15, and that's negative 30 over 7. And then I'm going to factor the inside. Okay, so what goes into 30 and adds to 7? All right, so I need to figure out what numbers go into negative 30 and add to positive 7. So 3 and 10, I can get to 7. Well, how do I get a positive 7? Well, that would make this a negative 3. Okay, and then I'm going to group. So with the 7k squared, I'm going to split it up. All right, so again, I'm going to leave this 2 on the outside. All right, let's rewind for a second. Okay, first what we did is we made it equal to 0. Then we took out the greatest common factor, which was 2. Then we are factoring the inside. 2 times negative 15 becomes negative 30. And then the b is the 7, which is on the bottom. I figured out these 2 factors. Okay, so the 2 is going to stay on the outside. And I'm going to rewrite what's on the inside. So I have 2k squared, well, plus 10k minus 3k minus 15. Okay, so instead of writing 7k, I wrote in these factors. I replaced them. So now I can group these 2 separately. So then I have 2. Again, that 2 stays on the outside, and then I'm going to group this. Well, what's in common for those? So 2k, k plus 10, or k plus 5, because I took out a 2. And then for this one, I can take out a negative 3. And what's left over? K plus 5. All right, I did it right if both of these factors are the same. Okay, so I'm going to put 2k and negative 3 together. I'm keeping this very organized so I don't get confused. All right, so those are my 2 factors. And then again, I'm going to bring that 2 back out. So the 2 needs to go in the front that I did the greatest common factor. Don't forget about that one. And now I can make these equal to 0 and solve. What a problem. So k equals 3/2 and negative 5. There we go. Okay, so how important is it to take out the greatest common factor so then this can get much easier for ourselves? All right, next one, number 9, we need to make it equal to 0, which in this problem, it already is. Ta-da! So now let's take out the greatest common factor. Well, they all have a 3 in common. So let's take out the 3 and see what we have left over. So x squared plus 11x plus 12. All right, so in this problem, if you notice, we can't factor this. So what would multiply to 12 and add to 11? Well, if we have 12 and 1 of them has to be positive. 3 and 4 does not add up to 11. And 7 and 2 or not 7 and 2, lo siento, 6 and 2, I can't get to 11 either. So this is as far as I can get. It's non-factorable, okay? So it's always good to determine if I can factor it or not. All right, the last one is a substitution idea. So if you notice, this could get really complicated really quickly. If you would want to FOIL this and then distribute this, and then you are factoring, holy cow, that could take a lot of work. So if you notice, it's a substitution problem, okay? So we are kind of looking at this problem as a substitution. So what I could do is, if you notice, x plus 1 is in for both of these. So let's say that I'm going to substitute u in for x plus 1 and see if this gets a little easier. So I'm going to plug in u squared plus 4u plus 4, okay? So again, I'm plugging in u for the x plus 1 and see if I can factor it and then plug it back in, all right? So what multiplies to 4 and adds to 4? Well, that would be 2 and 2. So then I have u plus 2 and u plus 2. All right, then I could substitute this back in for the u and see if I could solve from there. So I'm going to plug in x plus 1 in for u and then bring down the 2. And then this is kind of a shortcut for solving using substitution. And I have 2 of these, so it could be x plus 3 squared. Ta-da! So I substituted u in for x plus 1. Then I plugged back into x plus 1 after I factored. So try number 11 by substituting u in for x minus 2. All right, so I factored out. So I substituted u for x minus 2. I factored and got u minus 7 times u plus 3. I substituted x minus 2 back in and got x minus 9 times x plus 1. So that is a great way to solve it, okay? So thank you so much for joining me for day 3, factoring easy trinomials, and we will see you guys in class. Have a good day.